Greetings and salutations, nerds. This is Praying for Superpowers,
a show about the deeper meanings, messages, and intricacies hidden within nerd culture.
He's Chris Jordal.
I'm Trevor Sharon.
And today we're talking about improv, specifically about comedic relief.
Yes, and...
So yes, and is a rule of improv.
Yes.
If you didn't catch that.
Yes, and is the number one rule of improv. I am a professional improviser, have been for about 7 or 8 years now, and I love it. It's my true passion is improv and comedy, and I'm here to teach Trevor a little bit about it too.
Woohoo, because I am a non-professional improver. I improv most things in my life. But nobody pays me for it.
Yeah.
Chris, tell me first off, what are some of the rules for improv? And then we'll explore a little bit of like why improv is an important thing, and then explore some of the times we've seen it in some of our favorite nerdy things.
Yeah. Well, first of all, improv as its own separate art form started in Chicago, out of the Chicago theater scene in the 1950s. There was, history of improv in like Commedia dell'arte in Italy, hundreds of years ago, but when it became its own kind of thing, it was in the 50s. And people like Del Close and all those other people created this brand new art form, and over the years refined it, and their rules came about that they knew would make things better and all of this. And so the number one rule is yes and so if you are presented with something, say we're doing a scene.
Okay, we're doing a scene.
And I say, hello, Dr. Sheffield. I'd like to talk about my test results. And you say,
yes, and let me also bring in my supervisor, my grandmother.
Okay. It's a good scene. There's a good scene coming about. Now you give me like the same kind of line at the beginning.
Dr. Schofield, I need to talk to you about this client's chart.
I'm not a doctor. Dead scene. Not a good scene.
Dead is the client.
Yeah, dead doesn't work. So that's the first thing. Yes, and you need to accept what's going.
Yeah.
And then you did a great job of bringing your grandmother. I want to see that scene.
I may have been primed.
Accept and add is the improv rule, the number one rule. So you really need to listen. You need to interact. You need to collaborate. We actually even do the troupe that I'm in, Stick Horses and Pants, does even corporate trainings because improv rules and tendencies help in any part of life. In communication and collaboration, it's a wonderful tool. And
one kudo to Stick Horses and Pants. We've talked about them before, but they do clean shows. And I don't know if you've ever experienced how easy potty humor is.
Yeah.
But it's pretty easy.
Oh yeah, it's really easy.
We could just say and and it's easy.
Wow, Trevor, that was truly horrifying. Are you sure that the improv skill is not why you're monetizing on this program, or do you say stuff like that all the time?
All the time. We just cut it out.
Yeah.
It's what I say in my sleep.
Okay. And I feel bad for Bree. I feel sick right now.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
We'll just do a cut until you feel better.
Okay. Like I said, comedy, improv and comedy is like my true passion. That's what I love to do. Before we started recording, I was telling you, I think there's a big shift in comedy coming where it was for a little while very anger driven.
Yeah.
These long rants about things that are annoying these comics. But I think right now it's going to shift into like a really silly laugh just to laugh kind of comedy. Which I think is wonderful.
I would think it's wonderful too, because we need that in our lives. If you go back and listen to our Quantum Leap episode, it was a pretty heavy conversation, and we talked about some nihilistic, stoic type philosophies of just remember that you are going to die. And in a world that constantly reminds us of our mortality and shows us change, it's helppful to have some relief where we can laugh about things and feel separated from the darkness for just a short time.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember some of the hardest times in my life where I would be in the middle of it and then something would come up and it'd be the funniest thing, even funnier than probably if I saw it or heard it without going through that. It brings us relief. It brings solace. It brings all this stuff to any situation that you're in.
I've been doing a little bit of work with grief clients, and my supervisor told me once that in grief, humor can act as a salve in the midst of that pain. And I was reflecting on that and thinking about all of the like video games and TV shows that we watch where something very serious and disheartening and grief-worthy comes about in the show. And there's this one moment where we like sit with that feeling. And then immediately somebody says something goofy or something silly happens that kind of lightens the tone a little bit. And I think that for as much as the seriousness is important for us to be able to sit with the emotion, I think being able to have that lightness of spirit and laughter is so important too.
Absolutely.
We need that balance.
Yeah. And that's a professional goal of mine, is to be accessible to people who need that, who need comedy at the time. Let that, and there's a long way to go in my comedy career, no doubt. But just be able to do that, and that's part of the reason why Stick Horses does clean shows, is we want to be accessible. Anybody can come, anybody can enjoy it. We have kids that are laughing a whole bunch at our shows. We have adults that are laughing a whole bunch at our shows.
It's always funny. It's always, you leave with that really nice feeling of soreness in your abdomen.
Yeah, and not just clean, not just the bar of clean, but we want to be positive. Keep it positive, and just happy. A joyful kind of improv, a joyful kind of experience.
Which is rare and hard. I think hard is really... It
is hard. There's definitely some limitations that come up, some things that we can't do. We haven't always done it perfectly. But when it happens correctly, it's like no other feeling in the world.
Yeah. So, Chris, if you were to do an improv scene within like a sci-fi genre, where does your brain go to first? And then what would you actually come out of it with?
Well, I think for me, I would go to the gold standard of sci-fi, which is Star Trek: The Next Generation.
You heard it here.
Yeah. You know it. Everyone knows it.
Disagree with us in the comments.
Not everyone wants to admit it, but everybody knows it.
Yep. If you disagree with us, like this episode, that will really show us.
Yeah. And then I'm kind of struggling to say what would happen in the scene, because improv doesn't happen with one person, So I would bring Star Trek: The Next Generation into it, whereas a scene partner might bring in Battlestar Galactica or any number of novels that are out there or anything like that, and they would combine and then make something greater than what we could do individually.
So I hear that having someone else in participation is vitally important to the success of improv. And I can see how that would tie into corporate settings where, you know, you may think that you have a really good idea by going to the gold standard of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And nobody else can beat that idea.
Yeah.
But somebody else might be able to add something to it that gives it more vibrance.
Yeah. There's, I read this article about improv workshops for corporate areas, and they interviewed a lot of people who have done workshops with their companies and stuff, and said, I used to be so scared to put any idea out there because they would say no, or even harsher language than that, and then I wouldn't feel good, and then I would retreat, and then I wouldn't say anything for the rest of the meeting. With improv, even if, you know, that idea doesn't get picked up, or it's maybe even not a good idea, you still say it. You put it out there, and then you have trust in the group to pick it up. Say, yes, and maybe we do this too. And then you're forming something. A lot of people think that when they pitch an idea in business or anywhere, it needs to be a great idea, polished and out there. It doesn't. That's the whole idea of improv is you put something out there. It's like you're putting a piece of clay on the table, and then other people start forming it. And then pretty soon you got a pot.
Yeah. I'm thinking about Dungeons and Dragons, because a lot of what we do and play there is totally improv. Of the dungeon master gives something and you say, yes, and I want to jump off of the tower and cut this goblin, and you roll, and then the roll is bad. He's like, okay, you do cut the goblin in half, and the axe bounces back and lands in your head, or something like this. There's that building, and that's really what brings life to the adventure.
Exactly. I think that Dungeons and Dragons is great improv training, and I think improv is great Dungeons and Dragons training.
We did a show years ago where we got together with Stick Horses and Pants and did a live D&D improv show, and pulled some concepts from the audience. And,
to this day, I think that is the funniest show I've ever been a part of in my life. It was way beyond anything we have done before or since. And we've done some good stuff. But this show was so wonderful.
It was so funny. And we had so few people show up for it, but it was still wonderful.
But I always tell people the great thing about that show is that even if nobody comes, we're still playing Dungeons and Dragons with our friends. It's okay.
The bar's real low.
And I think it was great because we did a few training sessions beforehand, and you taught us more about Dungeons and Dragons, and then I think we gave you some improv training as well. And it was so much fun.
And what I realized is, even as a game master, like, it's one thing to keep control of your game and your concept, and I really had to come to a place where I was like, okay, I'm going to give up on my story, let it be the table's story. And also, I need to be able to engage the audience more, because the audience, you know, at a table is typically just your players. And it made me think a lot more about how I'm interacting with the players, knowing that there is a second audience. And seeing some of the similarities that are there, but also some of the very distinct dissimilarities where the audience wasn't playing, but still wanted to engage. And I think it's helpful for game masters and for players to kind of think of your party or wherever you are that you feel like you're improving something, and think about it in terms of an audience. What does the audience want? What's the mood of the audience? How does it feel? Is it a big audience? Like, are there a lot of people where energy is going to build a little bit easier, hopefully? Or is it a smaller audience where you're going to have to work?
And it'll make you a better listener. Which I think is a very important skill for anybody to have, make you a better listener. Because when you got to listen to your scene partner or the other players in Dungeons and Dragons, you have to also listen to the audience. And how they're reacting. audience, I think, in stand-up and in improv is as much a part of the show as the people performing.
Yeah.
They're steering the ship, kind of, with what they're doing.
Yeah. One secondary rule that goes as a part of games that I really, really liked was you have to start your sentence with the last letter of, or the last sentence of the person before you. And so if I was to end my sentence by saying, this is the end, you would have to start your sentence with a D. And so you have to listen to the entirety of the sentence. And then you have to figure out quickly how to start your sentence. And I think incorporating that into a setting that is appropriate. Like maybe talking to your boss may not be the most appropriate way to use that. But
unless you're really good.
Yeah, unless you're really good.
Yeah.
But doing it like at a D&D table.
Yeah.
Could make things really interesting and makes you listen more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I could plug something real quick, Stickers of the Pants is doing workshops. We monthly workshops that are just drop in. You come, we work on one concept or something in the night, and then just have a lot of fun. So look on the Facebook page for that, because it's a blast.
And what's the Facebook page?
Stick Horses and Pants. You look for that, you'll find us. Yeah.
That's
comedy.
Yeah. That's comedy. That was comedy.
That was so comedy.
That was comedy. Thank you for enjoying comedy with us.
Yeah. Thanks.
Here. Greetings and salutations, nerds. This is Praying for Superpowers.
A show about the deeper meanings, messages. Cut. Start over.
No, we're gonna improv this.
Okay. A show about the deeper meanings, messages,
and intricacies.
Messages and intricacies hidden within nerd culture. I'm Chris DeJordan.
And I'm Trevor Sharon. Today we're talking about improv.
Yes.
And how comedic breaks are really useful in all the nerdiness that we see and breaks from the seriousness.
So I am a professional improviser, and this is about as well as improv can go.
I don't know if I can salvage any of this.
Do you want a hard cut? We'll start over?
Yeah, let's hard cut and start over.
Definitely going on the blooper reel.
Yeah.